At 9:09 p.m. on May 2nd, 2000, Christina Marie Riggs drew her final breath as lethal chemicals flowed through her veins in Arkansas's execution chamber. The registered nurse who had sworn to do no harm had become one of America's most notorious child killers, her own children the victims of what she called an act of love. 3 years earlier, on a quiet November evening in 1997, Christina made a decision that would shatter everything sacred about motherhood. In their modest Sherwood home, she methodically killed 5-year-old Justin and 2-year-old Shelby, not in a moment of rage or temporary madness, but through carefully calculated injections administered while they slept peacefully in their beds. This wasn't a case of sudden violence or accidental death. Christina used her medical expertise to determine exact dosages, selected potassium chloride for its swift effectiveness, and waited for the perfect moment when both children were in deep sleep. The same hands that had once soothed their fevers and bandaged or scraped knees deliberately ended their lives with clinical precision. What transforms a mother's protective love into the instrument of her children's destruction? How does someone trained to save lives become their executioner? Christina's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about desperation, mental illness, and the terrifying moment when love becomes fatally twisted. The case challenged everything we believe about maternal instinct and professional ethics. Here was a woman whose career centered on preserving life, whose children trusted her completely, yet who convinced herself that murder was mercy. Her crimes horrified a nation and raised haunting questions that persist today. Could this tragedy have been prevented? What warning signs were missed? And in those final moments before execution, did Christina find redemption or remain convinced that killing her children was justified? Christina Marie Riggs entered the world in 1971 in Arkansas, born into circumstances that revealed nothing of the horror she would later inflict. Her childhood unfolded within middle-class normalcy, good grades, family stability, and early signs of the intelligence that would guide her toward healthcare. Nothing in those formative years suggested the capacity for unthinkable evil that lay dormant within her. Nursing school attracted Christina for reasons that seemed admirable. She demonstrated genuine aptitude for medical science and appeared drawn to helping others in their most vulnerable moments. Her instructors noted her careful attention to detail, her ability to remain calm under pressure, and her technical competence with complex procedures. She absorbed not just the mechanics of patient care, but also the profound responsibility that comes with holding others' lives in your hands. After graduation, Christina established herself as a respected professional in Arkansas's healthcare system. Colleagues valued her clinical skills and steady demeanor during medical emergencies. She could calculate drug dosages with mathematical precision, insert IVs with practiced ease, and comfort frightened patients with apparent empathy. Her medical knowledge encompassed detailed understanding of human physiology, pharmacology, and a delicate balance between healing and harm. Yet beneath this professional competence, personal struggles were taking root. Christina's transition to single motherhood brought financial pressures that her nursing salary couldn't adequately address. Childcare costs, medical expenses, and basic necessities consumed her income faster than she could earn it. The gap between her professional success and personal security created psychological tension that would prove catastrophic. Justin, her 5-year-old son, embodied boundless curiosity and energy. His fascination with dinosaurs and building blocks reflected a developing mind hungry for knowledge and experience. He trusted his mother completely, seeking comfort in her arms when nightmares frightened him and celebrating small victories under her proud gaze. Shelby, at 2 years old, represented pure innocence, giggling at peekaboo games, snuggling during bedtime stories, and depending entirely on Christina's care for survival. The irony becomes stark when we consider Christina's dual existence. By day, she witnessed families fighting desperately to save their children's lives, participated in elaborate medical interventions designed to preserve human life, and understood intimately the precious nature of each heartbeat. By night, she returned home to financial calculations that seemed increasingly hopeless and fears about her children's future that grew more consuming. Pride played a crucial role in Christina's isolation. The same independence that fueled her professional achievements now prevented her from seeking help when she needed it most. She maintained a facade of competent motherhood while privately battling thoughts that grew darker and more distorted. Family members who might have offered assistance remained unaware of her struggle because Christina had become expert at concealing vulnerability behind professional composure. As 1997 progressed, Christina's analytical mind, the same attribute that made her an effective nurse, began working against her. Instead of exploring practical solutions to financial difficulties, she fixated on the life insurance policies she had purchased for her children, transforming protective planning into something unrecognizably sinister. By October 1997, Christina's financial crisis had reached a breaking point that threatened to consume everything she held dear. Bills accumulated in overwhelming piles. Utility disconnection notices, mortgage payment demands, and credit card statements that documented her desperate attempts to maintain stability through borrowed money. Each day brought fresh evidence of her inability to provide the security she believed Justin and Shelby deserved. The mathematics of single parenthood proved unforgiving. Christina's nursing salary, adequate for supporting herself, couldn't stretch to cover 2 young children's needs. Groceries became luxury calculations. Medical expenses drained resources intended for basic necessities. Childcare costs consumed entire paychecks, leaving nothing for emergencies or unexpected expenses. The financial pressure created a psychological vice that tightened with each passing week. What made Christina's situation particularly dangerous was her complete isolation from support systems. Professional pride prevented her from admitting struggle to colleagues who respected her competence. Family relationships had grown distant through years of maintained independence. The same self-reliance that characterized her professional success now trapped her in a spiral of desperation without external intervention. During this period of mounting pressure, Christina began fixating on her children's life insurance policies with disturbing intensity. These modest policies, originally purchased as responsible financial planning, began occupying an increasingly prominent place in her thoughts. Her nursing background provided detailed knowledge of how these policies functioned, including the circumstances that would trigger payment to beneficiaries. The transformation of protective planning into destructive obsession represents one of the most chilling aspects of Christina's psychological deterioration. She began convincing herself that her children would be better served by death than by the poverty and uncertainty she believed awaited them. This reasoning required a complete inversion of normal parental thinking, transforming the protective impulse into its opposite through elaborate rationalization. Christina's medical knowledge proved tragically relevant to her evolving plans. She understood precisely how various medications affected human physiology, knew which substances could cause rapid death with minimal suffering, and possessed the technical skills necessary to administer them effectively. Her access to controlled substances through hospital employment provided the means to implement her horrific solution. November 4th, 1997, arrived without external drama or obvious signs of impending tragedy. Christina completed her nursing shift with characteristic professionalism, maintained normal interactions with colleagues, and returned home to what appeared to be a routine evening with her children. Justin and Shelby had no reason to suspect that their mother's bedtime routine carried the finality of permanent farewell. The clinical precision with which Christina executed her plan reflected both her medical training and the calculated nature of her decision-making. She waited until both children achieved deep sleep before beginning the injection process. Using potassium chloride, a substance whose cardiac effects she understood completely, she administered lethal doses with the same technical competence once used to save lives. After confirming both children were dead, Christina attempted suicide, intending to join them in death. Her survival meant facing the full weight of her actions and the justice system's response to crimes that defied comprehension. The emergency call that reached Sherwood Police Department on November 5, 1997, carried an eerie calmness that would later prove significant evidence. Christina's voice showed none of the hysteria expected from a mother discovering dead children. Instead, she displayed the composed communication style of a healthcare professional reporting a medical situation. Clinical, detached, and disturbingly matter-of-fact. When paramedics arrived at the modest home on Stanfield Drive, they encountered a scene that defied immediate explanation. Justin and Shelby lay peacefully in their beds, appearing to be in natural sleep rather than death. No signs of trauma, struggle, or violence were evident. The children's serene expressions contrasted sharply with the reality of their violent deaths, creating a disturbing juxtaposition that haunted everyone involved. Christina's unconscious state in her bedroom complicated the initial investigation. Found suffering from an apparent drug overdose, she required immediate medical intervention that temporarily prevented questioning. The irony was unmistakable. The same hospital where she had worked as a trusted healthcare provider now became the site of her treatment as the primary suspect in her children's murders. Law enforcement's methodical examination of the house began revealing troubling evidence even before Christina regained consciousness. The medicine cabinet contained an extensive collection of prescription medications, many obtainable only through medical channels. Syringes and injection equipment found throughout the home demonstrated both access to and familiarity with the tools necessary for administering controlled substances. The breakthrough came through forensic examination of the children's bodies. Toxicology reports revealed lethal concentrations of potassium chloride in both victim systems, a finding that immediately focused attention on someone with advanced medical knowledge. Potassium chloride's effects on cardiac function are well known to healthcare professionals, but largely unknown to the general public, making its use a clear indication of medical expertise. When Christina finally regained cognitive function, investigators faced the delicate challenge of questioning a grieving mother who was simultaneously their primary suspect. The interviews that followed would provide some of the most disturbing confessions in Arkansas criminal history. Rather than denying involvement or claiming ignorance, Christina offered detailed descriptions of her actions that demonstrated both premeditation and technical competence. Her confession revealed the calculated nature of her crimes in chilling detail. Christina described waiting until both children were deeply asleep before beginning the injection process. She explained her selection of potassium chloride based on its rapid action and her confidence in proper dosage calculations. Most disturbingly, she articulated her belief that killing Justin and Shelby constituted an act of mercy that would spare them from future suffering. The methodical way Christina recounted these horrific details shocked seasoned investigators who had encountered numerous violent crimes. Her clinical tone when discussing the murder suggested either profound mental illness or a complete absence of normal emotional response. The matter-of-fact delivery contrasted sharply with the hysteria typically displayed by parents in similar circumstances. Public reaction reflected both horror and bewilderment as news of the murder spread. The image of a trusted healthcare professional using medical knowledge to kill her own children challenged fundamental assumptions about maternal love and professional ethics, creating lasting trauma that extended far beyond the immediate victims. The trial of Christina Marie Riggs commenced in March 1999 under intense media scrutiny and public fascination. Judge David Burnett presided over proceedings that would grapple with fundamental questions about criminal responsibility, mental illness, and society's response to seemingly incomprehensible evil. The courtroom atmosphere crackled with tension as the community sought justice for two innocent children whose trust had been so completely betrayed. Prosecutor John Johnson approached the case with methodical precision, understanding that the horrific nature of the crimes required careful evidence presentation to avoid overwhelming jurors with emotional responses that might compromise objective judgment. The prosecution strategy centered on demonstrating premeditation through Christina's extensive medical knowledge and her calculated planning process. The evidence presented painted an unambiguous picture of deliberate murder executed with professional competence. Toxicology reports confirmed that both children had died from expertly administered injections of potassium chloride. The precision of dosage calculations and the efficiency of administration demonstrated someone with intimate knowledge of pharmaceutical effects and advanced injection techniques. Medical testimony from forensic pathologist Dr. Charles Coates provided clinically detailed explanations of how potassium chloride causes cardiac arrest. His descriptions of the children's final moments, delivered in the dispassionate language of medical science, underscored both the calculated nature of their deaths and the specialized expertise required to accomplish them so efficiently. Defense attorney Pam Buchanan faced the nearly impossible task of arguing for mercy in a case where the defendant had shown none to her own children. Unable to dispute Christina's guilt, the The defense strategy focused on mental illness as an explanation for actions that seem to defy rational understanding or normal human behavior. Mental health experts testified about Christina's psychological condition, describing severe depression and other psychiatric disorders that they argued had impaired her judgment and distorted her perception of reality. The defense contended that Christina's belief in murder as mercy represented delusional thinking that prevented her from forming the criminal intent necessary for capital murder charges. Defense witnesses described Christina's financial struggles and social isolation, providing context for understanding the pressures that contributed to her psychological deterioration. They painted a picture of a woman who had become increasingly withdrawn and obsessed with irrational fears about her children's future welfare. Evidence of Christina's previous devotion to Justin and Shelby, including photographs and personal testimonies, created a tragic contrast between the loving mother she had been and the killer she became. This supported defense arguments that only severe mental illness could explain such a complete transformation of character. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict: guilty of capital murder, with a sentence of death by lethal injection. During her years on death row, Christina granted several interviews that provided disturbing insights into her mental state and continuing justification for her actions. Speaking with journalists and documentary filmmakers, she maintained an eerily matter-of-fact attitude about the murders, expressing no conventional remorse and continuing to characterize her actions as motivated by love rather than malice. As her execution date approached in spring 2000, Christina made modest final requests that contrasted sharply with the enormity of her crimes. Her last meal consisted of simple comfort foods: a cheeseburger, strawberry banana cake, and Diet Dr. Pepper. May 2nd, 2000, dawned gray and humid in Arkansas. Christina spent her final hours in the death house adjacent to the execution chamber, receiving visits from a chaplain and her remaining legal counsel. At 9:09 p.m., Christina was escorted into the execution chamber and secured to the gurney, where lethal injection would be administered. The process proceeded with clinical efficiency that grimly mirrored her own methodical approach to killing. Her final words, whispered to the attending chaplain, were reportedly a simple prayer. Christina Marie Riggs was pronounced dead at 9:19 p.m., becoming one of the few women executed in America since capital punishment's reinstatement.